Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of ProBono.org's podcast. I'm your host, Emil, and today I'm joined with Masi Nkube, who's a Cape Town regional manager there. Now, a little bit about Masi. Masi has interest in social justice and affecting transformative change to the law prompted to him to join ProBono.org, sorry. He started his legal journey at the University of Stellenbosch, where he was an active member of various human rights organizations. Thereafter, he completed his articles of clerkship and was admitted as an attorney of the High Court of South Africa in 2020. After being admitted, Masi has worked with various community advice officers, non-profit organizations, government institutions, law firms to enable access to justice for indigenous and vulnerable people. Masi, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I am doing good, and you. That is quite the resume you have there.
Uh, it's nothing really.
I
But
feel
I just really enjoy helping out people and making sure that those who are vulnerable and indigent are getting the legal assistance that they need.
I feel like a lot of lawyers, when a person who's a non-lawyer says that's quite a bio, they're like, it's nothing. It's just a normal Tuesday for me.
Yeah, it's just another day in the office.
Just another day saving people's lives. Such a great thing, by the way.
Uh, uh,
But
flattery.
let's get straight into it. Now, the one thing I want to know is what area of the law does the ceased estates fall under?
So the deceased estates would fall under its own field of law, which is the deceased estates. More particularly in the industry, you would call it maybe wills and deceased estates. And it pertains to specifically if someone passes away. So deceased estates is essentially the property relating to those who have passed.
And can you elaborate? Because I've heard this term thrown around from time to time, but could you elaborate on what testatus and intestate succession is?
Of course. So testate succession would relate to if one passes away with a will. And unfortunately, in this country, there's not many people who have access to getting a will or obtaining information about drafting a will. Intestate succession relates to passing away without a will. And obviously, whether you pass away with a will or without a will, you would need to have your property to be distributed in a manner to have your heirs to inherit. And the specific procedures that are relevant where you pass away without a will, and specific procedures that are relevant when you pass away with a will.
So, with the will in mind, and you're saying that unfortunately in this country, it's not a lot of people don't have wills. Is it a difficult thing to get wills in within South Africa?
In a way, so there are many ways that you can obtain a will. First of all, you don't need a lawyer to draft a will for you. So you can draft a will yourself. However, there are certain legislative or formalities that you have to have in place to draft a will. For example, it has to be written, there has to be two witnesses. So it's highly recommended that you do get a lawyer to draft your will. Many banks do offer the service of drafting wills for their clients. And oftentimes, what you'll notice is that law firms provide the free legal assistance of drafting up wills during Wills Week. So, Wills Week is usually in September. Bono.org provides free legal assistance. Various other law clinics also provide free legal assistance when it comes to drafting wills. But I think many people either don't have the knowledge of approaching these various places for wills, or alternatively, they might not see the significance of drafting a will. Maybe they might think that a will is not necessary for their property to be inherited by their heirs, or they might think they do not have sufficient um, property in order to draft up a will. But I'll always recommend that a will should be drafted for anyone, no matter how small their estate is.
So I just want to take it back a little bit, right? So before I ask you a question about testate and intestate, right? But can you provide short scenarios where these two are at play and what legislations regulate these, or is it just one?
Okay. So when it comes to testate succession, the Wills Act would be relevant. And the Wills Act would state the various formalities that's required to have a valid will. So, like I've mentioned, the will has to be written. It has to have two signatories or witnesses. The person that is signing the will needs to be of mental capacity of drafting a will, and they need to be of age in order to draft a will. So there's various formalities as per the Wills Act in relation to drafting a will, and that can be compared to the Intestate Succession Act. So, in your will, you would state who you want to inherit, whilst intestate succession is where if you pass away without a will, then the law would kick in. So the law would state, for example, if you're married, that your surviving spouse would inherit from your deceased estate. If you are married and you have children, then a specific amount would go to your surviving spouse. And then thereafter, there's a child share that would go to your children, depending on how big your deceased estate is. And there are certain processes where you're not married, and if you have no children as well. So it can get quite complex when it comes to intestate succession, especially if you don't want your children, for example, to inherit, or you don't want a relative to inherit. And this goes back to the significance of having a will.
Okay, and then we're speaking about wills quite a lot, and the one thing I want to know is, are there any free service to write wills? And if there is not, what is the average costing of actually writing a will?
So frankly, I'm not too sure what the average costing is. It usually isn't too expensive, and honestly, considering how important it is to put down your wishes in a will with regards to your property, the expense is way worth it because you don't want a situation where you have your heirs fighting over the deceased estate just because you do not have a will. For example, what you oftentimes see is, let's say there was a son that had issues with their father, and they were the ones that didn't look after the father when they were sick. They were the ones that was always causing trouble in the household. And now, when the father passes away, now that son wants to inherit in terms of the Intestate Succession Act, and that person would be able to inherit. So, if you are someone that especially sees that in your family you want the specific person to inherit, or if you don't want your family to inherit, then you should have a will in order to make your wishes clear.
Okay, and with that, are there any free services? Yes or no?
Yeah, so with regards to pro bono.org, we provide that free service of drafting wills. So we'll be able to find private legal practitioners to assist you with that. Alternatively, most of the university law schools have law clinics where they draft wills for free. And like I said, during Wills Week, which is usually in September, most law firms are open to drafting wills for free for those who can't afford it.
No, that's great, sir. And finally, how can legal practitioners help, you know, help join or join probono.org, sorry. How can they join probo.org to actually help with, writing these wills for free, growing the community? How can they help?
So most of our matters in our Cape Town office, specifically at pro bono.org, relate to deceased estates. And deceased estates is beyond drafting wills. So if you have experience in deceased estates and drafting wills, then I definitely suggest that you join our panel. We can have you assist our pro bono clients with drafting wills, with administrating the deceased estate, with assisting with contesting with wills. It can get quite helpful for those who have nowhere else to go to get access to, let's say, for example, funds to the deceased's bank accounts, or let's say ownership of immovable property. So it's really important for legal practitioners who have experience when it comes to deceased estates to join our panel in order for those people to get the assistance that they require.
And before we end, is there any way for someone to sign up? Is there a fee to sign up to join probono.org?
So there's no fee to sign up. I think it's quite important to let everyone know that in terms of the Legal Practice Act, um, as per the Act, community service is mandatory for all legal practitioners. And the meaning of that means that it's mandatory for legal practitioners to do their pro bono hours. So pro bono org is one platform or one way in order to do your pro bono hours as a legal practitioner. So you are able to join our panel, and in doing so, then you'll get basically instructions that will be tailored to your field of law, and will be high in process of success. So it really makes the process of accepting matters that are helpful to those who are indigent and vulnerable easier, and it also just helps the bridging of the gap between expensive private legal services and also those who are indigent and who require access to justice.
Well, Masi, thank you so much for informing me more about deceased law. I don't think I have a full understanding of it yet, but I think I'll do my more research after this. But you've opened my mind and my viewpoint of how these actually work. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy the probono.org series so far, please leave a like, share with your family, friends, and like I always say, with your coworkers. And we'll see you in the next one. Basi, I just want to say thank you one more time.
Thank you so much for having me.